everyone. Thank you all for coming. If I didn't have a chance to meet you as you came in, I'm Scarlett Miller. I am the director of the Cocozziello Institute of Real Estate Innovation here at Penn State. I'm also, in my other hat, a professor of industrial and mechanical engineering, and I've been with Penn State for longer than I'd like to say because it's a long time. I am really excited to invite you to this event today. If you haven't heard about the Institute yet, it is the newest institute that sits under the Senior Vice President of Research here at Penn State. We have been in existence for about a year and a half, and we're really focused on interdisciplinary research about the future of real estate and the built environment, and we look to bring forward design, data, engineering, and entrepreneurship to really reimagine the way that we build and we live. So today's panel features a bunch of experts who are really transforming the built environment and the built world, either through private equity, smart home innovation, energy technology, or AI-driven decision-making and design leadership. Our goal here today, we have a mix of faculty and students from all levels, undergraduate, graduate, and postdoctorate degrees as well, is to really provide you with a perspective of how truly multidisciplinary this field is and how many different entry points there are into entering into real estate, and how researchers and students from all backgrounds can contribute to the future here. So we have 4 panelists in person today, and I am going to do my best to bring up Keith here, who is also joining us live from New York. It's Keith.
Can you see me?
Yes,
Am I going to take up the whole screen?
I'm going to make you. Yes. So we are going to get started today. I'm going to give each panelist a moment to introduce themselves and briefly introduce themselves. And I've asked them to kind of hit 3 kind of main points. Any academic degree, 1 or 2 key pillars such as mentors or experiences or turning points for them that help guide their path here today. And I also asked them to keep it short and sweet so we could get on to some of our important questions. And I've left plenty of time for the end here today for you all to ask questions. So I want you all to think as you're hearing these panelists today of any questions that you have, and I will be calling on you later this afternoon. It's afternoon. Yeah. So we will start with Epi.
How about now? There we go. I'm Epi Voigt. I'm the Chief Digital and AI Officer at West Shore Home. West Shore Home is one of the nation's largest home remodelers. We focus on a few project scopes, so bathrooms, windows, doors, full home flooring. So there's the 4 types of projects that we work on. We do just about $1 billion a year in revenue. I have a degree from the University of Pittsburgh. Don't hold it against me. But West Shore Home does sponsor the football field, so we've got a deep Penn State connection here. A turning point or a key pillar in my career. So I actually have a degree in political science, and I do data and artificial intelligence work. I commit code. I am incredibly technical at this point. And the way that I got there was by embracing a deep and unquenchable curiosity to know. And I think if that's something that you can embrace in your career, it will enable you to find a place that you can drive significant impact. So that's been transformative for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Epi, for being here. Qingwen.
Hi, I'm Jingwen Chen. I'm a director of Stuckman School. We have 3 departments: architecture, graphic design, and landscape architecture. And my background is landscape architecture. So what kind of informs my path? So I have a PhD in regional planning and masters of landscape architecture, and then a bachelor's in horticulture and landscape architecture. And when I was in undergrad, and I discovered the profession of landscape architecture, and what I really stick to is I think it is the field really brings the people and the environments and the bridge to balance the human system and natural systems. That's kind of keep me going. And then once I got into my research and when I did my postdoc at the University of Michigan, and we're looking at we have found a colleague here, and so I did the environmental justice research. That was the time I really bring to justice in the lens of design and in the built environment. So actually, that's actually shaped my current research interest. And also, I'm also IE theme lead on equitable community and the built environment. So that's also where I'm at the Penn State. I'm trying to also collaborate on that area, how we can make justice systems to be equitable in the built environment.
Thank you, Ching-Wen. Gary.
Hi, I'm Gary Brandeis, Penn State class of 1988, accounting major, and spent the last 35 years as a real estate developer and investor. Really a vertically integrated company. You know, we raise capital, we invest that capital, we do construction and development, and then we operate our own buildings, whether it's a hotel, office building, shopping centers. We have about a $400 million portfolio of real estate that we own and operate. But we're a really entrepreneurial, hands-on owner-operator. So I'm really fortunate that I get to play in the capital markets, in the lending markets. I get to wear a hard hat and build things and work with architects and engineers. And then I get to build great teams that run our properties. We have 12 hotels that we own and operate, 6 here in State College, including the Nittany Lion Inn and Penn Stater, the Hyatt, the Scholar, and then the Marriott Courtyard and Residence Inn. So we have almost 600 employees here in State College, 600 employees, 6 hotels, 930 hotel rooms, 80,000 square feet of conference and meeting space. We have one of the largest private businesses here in Center County. So it's been a great opportunity to build a big part of our business here in State College and Penn State as well. So I think for me, and certainly this topic, I was thrilled when I heard about the new institute, because I've been in real estate technology since the dot-com days in the late 90s. And so I've seen the proliferation of technology and how it impacts the things we do in the real estate space. So the AI aspect now and what we sort of went through 25 years ago with the internet, there's so many similarities, and I think we learned a lot then. I think we're going to do it a lot better this time.
Great. Thank you. Gavin.
Okay. Gavin Evans. I too am a developer, but I'm gonna, and a lot of what you said resonates with me, because being a developer, it's a great career path. You really get to touch on a lot of different things. You get to build things. You deal with architects. You deal with construction, but you also it's high finance and fundraising, and it's sort of endlessly challenging. Maybe you have to be a little bit crazy too. But let me start from the beginning. So I did graduate from Penn State with a degree from Smeal College of Business in 1996. I've been to Penn State every year since, but this is my first visit to the hub. So I'm excited to be here today.
Go to the hub when you were in school for college?
No, sorry. In 30 years, sorry. It's obvious. No, I'm not that crazy. I was here for the 1994 undefeated season. We definitely would have beaten Nebraska, Scarlett.
Controversial.
What's that?
Controversial.
So after I graduated Penn State, I took a financial analyst job in Philadelphia. After 2 years, I got the itch for the action of New York City. And when I landed a job in real estate private equity, I promise you, I'm not kidding, I sang Frank Sinatra to my parents. So I was at this firm. It was called Westbrook Partners. It was a global opportunity fund manager, and we invested in every sector around the world. What we did is we allocated capital on a deal-by-deal basis to local operators and developers. And it took me 8 years to come to the realization that I really enjoyed the deals, not when I could underwrite something in Paris from my desk in New York, but actually the things where I could be closer to the real estate. I could interact with the business plan execution. I could be side by side with our development partners. And that led me to join one of them, a firm called Normandy. And Normandy, actually co-founded by a Penn Stater, Normandy, I joined in 2006, so 10 years into my career. But that was the big pivotal moment, wanting to be closer to the real estate. And I was there 14 years. It was a wonderful experience. I think back to, I probably learned more the first year there as a developer, then in 8 years as kind of a generalist and like generalist private equity. We sold the company in 2020, right before COVID, very lucky. And that led me to basically fulfill one of my long-term goals of starting a platform that was co-founding a real estate investment, operating and development platform based in New York City, focused on residential and office.
Thank you, Gavin. And I mentioned to Gavin in the hallway, Gavin is actually the reason we're having this panel. He forgot, but I never forget. We were having a conversation in New York about the Institute, and he brought up Whiteout Week and being here and potentially doing a panel, and here we are. So you plant a seed, it grows. So thank you for the idea and for being here. Coming live from New York, Keith.
Live from New York. How you doing, everyone? Thank you so much for including me and inviting me. My name is Keith Angel. I graduated from Lafayette College in 1998 with a degree in economics and math. And then I went into finance. I spent 15 years working in institutional sales and trading derivatives for Deutsche Bank and Barclays and kind of had this Wall Street career. And the transition moment for me was in 2013 with two kids. I woke up and said, I don't want to do this anymore. And I founded my first company. And so similar to one of the entrepreneurs in the room, I left Wall Street. I left a high paying job to get no salary, to take out the trash, to build the company. I built a buy now, pay later company. And I was able to exit that company to private equity within 3 years, which was truly remarkable. There were days where we couldn't make payroll. There was days where it looked like we were growing way too fast. So that was a really interesting time. And since then, one of my investors and friends was in commercial real estate doing sustainability work for a company called Code Green that works with CalPERS, the state of California. He said, Keith, I like the way you raise money. I like the way you scale tech. I like the way when things were going well, you communicated, and when they were going bad, you communicated. Would you help me? And so I helped Stephen with his Code Green company. We ended up selling it to private equity. After I exited that, I partnered with Charles Conwell, who's a Penn State grad. I think he was class of 2004. And Charles and I are partners on Novell, and it's an energy storage technology platform that's really focused on the built environment. So thank you again for including me.
Thank you so much. So that was an excellent segue into our first topic. We have several themes today, but our first theme is around private equity. So private equity is really reshaping how we invest in and develop real estate. And so I want to explore some of the capital strategy and market dynamics that are really impacting the built environment. So Gavin, my first question is for you. You're a founding partner at Skylight Real Estate Partners. So what's one innovative investment strategy that you're currently using to respond to shifting market demands? And what are those shifting market demands?
Yes, of course. Well, as I said, so we're an operator and a developer. We make investments in partnership with private equity funds. So that's the tie-in here. Real estate private equity has been growing for 30 years quite steadily. The big change in the last, well, there's a couple. One big change in the last 10 or 15 years is before 2008, the lending markets were dominated by banks, insurance companies, and other public entities. In the wake of the global financial crisis, when all those regulated players were hemorrhaging and kind of, that really stalled the entire market, private equity had an opportunity to jump in. And we saw that, obviously, Blackstone became a huge player, Starwood became a huge player, and lots of others. And so you fast forward to today, I actually have some recent stats. 17% of all commercial real estate loans are originated from private equity lenders. But more importantly, 31% of construction and 41% of multifamily construction. So you think about the impact, if that sort of, if private equity didn't step in post GFC, where would lending markets be today? Big question. How has Skylight taken advantage of that? That's your the second part. We saw in the last 3 years, obviously high inflation, high interest rates, and lending markets got incredibly backed up. In fact, 3 years, 3 years later today, still not fully recovered. And so there's people talk about the maturity wall. There's billions, maybe trillions of assets that are leveraged with those loans coming due, and what's going to happen. And more, we're seeing private equity being able to, again, like really step up and fill a gap. Simple example, if there's an asset that might be worth $100 million and there might be 90 million of debt, the seller who has 60 million of original equity might not be psyched to sell. They don't have enough to pay off the old debt. So there is a great opportunity. We've been taking initiative in this space. We call it rescue capital. We also call it just preferred equity, and it prices as equity, but it's really a debt type product with debt type controls, and it's become very popular.
Thank you. So it only makes sense to go from one New Yorker to another New Yorker, I feel like, in this situation. So I can throw this question to Keith. Keith,
Sure.
you mentioned you're the CFO of Novell. So how is private equity helping scale sustainable infrastructure in real estate, and what challenges do you face aligning capital with the impact that you're trying to make?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think, first of all, anytime you're thinking about a market, it's always good to start with the macros, right? So what are the challenges? Where are the tailwinds, right? How can the airplane fly faster because there's things that you're making it easier for you, and what are the headwinds? And so when you think about some of the challenges for sustainable infrastructure, just like Gavin mentioned, there was a lot of deal making that happened in 2021 when rates were very low, and private equity and a lot of products, financial products are rate sensitive. So when interest rates go up, it makes it harder. You're refinancing at higher rates, so you have all these challenges. The second challenge was the administrative change, right? So we had a new president come in, and so all of the old programs like the IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, that Biden had put in place, Trump was dismantling. And so what that creates is a lot of uncertainty. And so for everyone in the room, what uncertainty means is risk. And if you have higher risk, then you need a higher return to take that risk. So it just makes it harder and harder to finance. On the tailwind side, you have this kind of global energy transition where we're creating a lot of AI data centers. We're electrifying society at large. And so you have a lot of tailwinds coming in for the sustainable infrastructure behind that. Depending on who you look at, there's anywhere from $3 to $6 trillion a year coming into that space. So that's a lot of capital that needs to be deployed. The approach, what Novell decided to do, we make an energy board. It looks like a flat screen TV. I'm going to try and cheat a little bit here and see if I can share my screen. No, I'm not going to do that. That would be cheating. I'd show you a big picture and it would cheat, but so I won't do that. What Novell does is we make an energy board. It looks like a 50-inch flat screen TV. Each panel is 5 kilowatt hours of capacity. And so it's battery, it's storage, it's basically a computer plus a battery inside the building at point of consumption or demand. And so if you want to reduce your energy bill by $50,000 to $100,000 for a commercial or industrial building, we can install this system and reduce your cost. And so for us, we have to be able to finance that. And so when you think about capital, there's equity capital, which if you're like a high growth tech company like we are, that's going to cost 35 to 50% per year. And that's how much I want my company to grow. And then there's debt capital, which might be closer to 10 to 15%, which is a total different cost of capital. And so if I can unlock this 10 to 15% cost of capital from the trillions of dollars out there that want to come into the ecosystem and deploy, then I can take that capital and use it to meet my customer demand. So how about I put 25 energy boards in your building? You don't have to pay anything out of pocket. It's tax flow positive year one. You'll be cash flow positive, and you'll get all this value. And so if you think about the market as where am I going to invest my capital to get the highest return? And I can invest in oil and gas companies that are paying 10%, but you can invest in sustainable impact companies at 3%. We're never going to get the commercialization we want. if we can get that 3% up to 12%, so we're providing a higher return because we're very thoughtful on how we structure, how we deliver, we're meeting our customer needs, we're going to unlock that $1 trillion of capital. And that's what we're doing.
Thank you, Keith. Keith, the Energy Board Novell has is a great example of prop tech or property technologies that's really trying to integrate, particularly on the commercial side. But if we go from commercial to more home innovation, technology is also transforming the way that we live, particularly with IoT and other AI-driven innovations within the smart home environment. So I'm going to transition us from talking kind of more commercial scale to talking more smart home innovations and how it's really changing the residential experience. And because of that, Epi, I think you're a great person to answer this next one. You're the Chief Data and AI Officer at West Shore Home. So what's one smart technology that you're excited about, and how's that changing the way people experience their houses?
Sure. I think the smart technology that I'm excited about is not a particular gadget, and it's really more the advancement of intelligence into the home. And I'll speak on this first on the implication of artificial intelligence and how it operates from a business perspective. So we don't do a lot of like smart home installation, but the technology that we leverage to optimize efficiency inside of our business is the same thing that's coming into the home that's going to transform the experience for the homeowner. So a lot of what we leverage right now is leveraging artificial intelligence, LLMs, in an agentic capacity. So we afford an agent the ability to execute certain functions. It has access to pieces of data that enrich its context and awareness. It knows things about our business or a specific scenario that it's operating inside of. And as a result, it's able to perform actions that an employee would typically perform on our behalf. Where this materializes for us is so we execute scheduling at the point of sale. The moment that we go out and sell a job to a homeowner, we have agents in the background that are understanding the permitting implications of that job, inventory availability, the right resourcing that's required that will have availability to do the installation. It's estimating the number of hours it will take to complete the job. These are very complex tasks that the agents are capable of performing in a matter of seconds, and then executing actions on behalf of that. So we can reallocate inventory so that we can execute the job. We can assign a crew to that specific job, et cetera. Those same capabilities can be applied in the home and move us from novelty on the in-home devices. So if you have a Google Alexa or Google Home or an Alexa device in your house, it's probably like an extension of Spotify for you. At least in my home, that's what it is. It's mostly, hey, Alexa, play this song. But the context window that it can have, especially if it connects into LLMs, is a significant advancement where it can have awareness of what's happening in the home from all of the connected devices, and then it can take action on the homeowner's behalf. So it will know that your HVAC is going to need a filter replacement soon, and it knows your Amazon order history that you haven't ordered a filter. So you could potentially afford it the ability to execute that order on your behalf, or to schedule a maintenance service for you, to engage with you proactively, to ask you if it should do that. And that becomes transformative because it moves the experience for the homeowner from one that feels complicated or requires a lot of interface, a lot of personal attention, to one that's responsive, natural, leverages natural language, is entirely conversational. And that's the thing that I think is going to be most transformative. It's the thing that I am as excited about as a homeowner. The notion that I can actually have an understanding of all of the maintenance tasks inside of my home and not feel like it's a burden is, I think, pretty compelling.
I really appreciate that. I also appreciate the Spotify on the Alexa. I resonate with that as a mom of three, too.
Yep.
And I also love the idea of the forward-thinking nature of that this is where we are now, but where can we be in the future as well? So, Ching-Wen, that is a kind of great lead into you. So how do you see smart technologies and design intersecting to create more equitable or resilient living environments?
Thanks for the question. So in our school, we have architecture, landscape architecture, which is work closely with real estate development to make it a reality, how we design. in that built environment. And we have graphic design really now has strength in the user experience design. So we can think about this in the various scales, right? In the size scale, in the building scales, how we incorporate those technology and to do better modeling. We have a couple students here, who are actually focusing on the energy efficiency, modeling and what kind of material. And all this AI could potentially help us to make a better decision and do the pattern and prediction, etc. So, at the neighborhood scale, right? If we scale this up, the smart energy and how we can harvest that and to support a community more sustainably to be on site, right? So if it can also expand to water and even sustainable food system. So if you scale up to the cities, communities, and watershed scale, and that's how the AI can assist with those data analysis or landscape architecture in the planning. Can also look at different systems, how we can synthesize those data to do better sites of the development. Or also think about resilience is a climate change impact. How we can understand the exposure to those climate change induced hazards, and then how the smart technology can be better prepare us to be coping with those changes and disturbances. It could be, flooding is a big issue in Pennsylvania. What could be the early warning systems? What could be a more resilient design that we can work with real estate development to be more sustainable, resilient? And then now next will be equitable. How can this be affordable? How can this be accessible to all people needs in the community?
Thank you. We've heard the word AI many, many times today. And there are so many ways AI is influencing the lives around us and is being integrated into our own day-to-day work as well. But there's also implications for that in the energy use and the built environment. Data centers are being brought online faster and faster for all of those ChatGPT inquiries, or Copilot for our Penn Staters here. And many of those data centers are multiple years out from even being able to plug into the grid, which is then bringing in questions of nuclear energy and how that can impact it. So Keith, you talked about Novell developing intelligent energy storage systems for urban buildings. So what are some of the biggest energy challenges that you see facing the built environment today? And how is AI helping create novel solutions and not just problems, because we need the energy to power the AI, but how are you using that to also address these challenges?
Yeah, sure. No, great question. So, again, I'm going to start very simple, keep it simple, stupid, right? Like, if you think about the macros, we've got an aging infrastructure. I like to joke that the infrastructure that moves electricity outside of this building is older than all of us on the panel, right? We have and it's inadequate for the amount of power that we need for AI data centers. We're electrifying cars, buildings. You have this like massive transformation, and so and at the same time, you've got huge capex, right? So if you think about Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, they're putting a huge amount of capital in from these hyperscalers into AI. And so it creates a lot of opportunities. Anyone in this room, if you read some of the thoughtful pieces by McKinsey and Blackstone, they're going to talk about, now's a great time to move into power. And so if you think about AI and data centers and what's coming, there's great opportunity in what we would call like the picks and shovels of AI and data center, right? So if you're when there was a huge gold rush, the ones that made the money were the ones that were handing out and selling the shovels and picks and the equipment to go and get the gold, not the ones actually getting the gold. And so if you think about that similarly, what Novell has done is we've kind of created a couple products. One is a product for data centers that goes specifically in the rack. So you have these really high-powered GPU that are computing, And when they run their processes, they have this downtime. And so there's big shifts in power. And so Novell created a power conditioning solution so that there's no voltage droop to make the GPU more efficient and to last longer in value. Secondly, we're using AI every day in our both our onboarding process and our operational process. And so for Novell, we might look at someone's energy bill. We'll have the user or the customer will just literally key in their energy information, and then behind the scenes, we pull out every 15-minute incremental energy use by that customer. AI runs a model and comes up with a suggestion on how we can help that customer reduce their energy cost, and suggests how many energy boards we can put in for that system. And I can do that with like literally no time. Someone just keys it in. If you think about customer acquisition costs, you have this massive AI operational technology that can come in and make these choices. And then once we're inside the building, and once we've installed these systems, now we're learning how the building performs, how it uses power, when it turns on its HVAC systems, what happens on Saturday and Sunday when there's no one in the building. And so we're gathering all that data and analytics and then using it and having AI, these agentic models run behind the scenes to make decisions on when we should use the batteries versus use the grid. And so it's really hitting us in everything from customer acquisition to operational infrastructure. And you have this huge, kind of, I'd call it a generational shift that's happening.
Great, and I know you guys have had some really big recent successes with major home stores, so I'm excited to see that coming out here in the future too. Epi, really, I think West Shore Home is becoming a household name here in State College. It's plastered all over our stadium, which is amazing. But I think one of the cool things about West Shore Home is that they've really pushing the envelope in AI, and not just saying that it's important, but hiring a chief data and AI officer, I think is putting kind of money where their mouth is, so to speak. So I think one of the great things about the position is you're really able to lead one of the most ambitious AI transformations in home remodeling. So can you share some of how you're using AI to optimize anything from how we design to how we schedule, and really what challenges you're solving that traditional methods can't?
Sure. So from our end, artificial intelligence can, should, and will touch every single area of the business. We have a fairly unique challenge in that we're trying to run a home remodeling company at scale. So we did 54,000 jobs last year. Every day we get 7,000 new marketing inquiries that come in, and we need to qualify those customers. We need to understand the current state of their space, know the future state, recognize the delta between those, and understand what it takes to make that transformation, schedule the install, send a crew out, execute the installation, verify the quality of what was installed, follow up the customers to get 5-star reviews so that our marketing funnel continues to perform. Every single area in that process, plus all of the back-end operations that we execute to run the business, are places that artificial intelligence can touch. So I'll walk you through a couple of instances of things that we have either currently in development or already deployed. The first is on the front end, so making sure that we are efficiently deploying advertising spend in order to acquire new customers. And this is absolutely critical. Marketing spend is a huge percentage of the total cost of a project that we deliver. So if we can decrease our marketing cost, it gives us the ability to either effectively rebate that back to the customer and create a competitive moat that no one can execute against, where we're now beyond price competitive and leverage other elements of scale within the business, et cetera. Or a way for us to leverage that to further invest in technology and extend a capability moat relative to our competition. So what we do on that end, and this is a similar story to what Keith had mentioned around the criticality of data collection, and then leveraging that to build out machine learning algorithms that can execute a predictive function. What we do is enrich the data that we get. So we want to reduce friction as much as possible for the customer to engage in business with us. So we ask them for 5 pieces of information in order to start a relationship with us: first name, last name, email address, phone number, zip code. And that's all we want. You submit that information to us, and we can enrich that data with publicly available sources. So I know when you submit that information, with a relatively high degree of certainty what your age is, what your gender is. I know where you live. I know how long you've lived there. I know when your home was built. I know the square footage. I know roughly the equity that you have in the property. If you are a cash buyer, if you have a tax lien, on and on and on. So all of this data is useful for us, especially when coupled with technographic information as well as engagement data on our site to model out which customers are likely to convert. We can leverage that to pass data back to marketing platforms that we utilize to target more customers like the ones who model to the customers who actually convert into paying profitable customers for us. So this is a huge component to driving success in the business and an area that we're very actively investing in. So I noted that we get 7,000 leads per day. That's enormous. It's very challenging for us to qualify those customers to make sure that they have projects that are in scope. One of the things that we do that's allowed us to be successful is we restrict the scope of projects that we work on. So BJ, our founder, Penn State alum, likes to use the analogy that we are more fast casual than fine dining. So if you think about a Chick-fil-A or a Chipotle, they do highly repeatable, meals that can be delivered at scale. And we're looking for the same thing. So we don't have white tablecloth, not fine dining. We are very much what the average American wants for a project. So we're dialed in on that capability. So the qualification element becomes important for us. We're leveraging artificial intelligence to do this through conversational SMS. So we have agents that send out messages to customers and say, hey, thanks for your inquiry. We have 2 o'clock on Thursday available. Does that work for you? And they can say, no, it doesn't. Well, that agent can query against all of our design consultant schedules and say, here are 3 other options that work, or tell me what date is good for you. And it can check to see if we have availability. This gives us the ability to reach deeper into the pool because that 7,000 daily inquiries becomes a compounding problem. If you didn't get to them on day 1, the likelihood that you're going to get to them on day 2 when you have 7,000 newer, fresher inquiries is far less likely. So critical component there. Understanding the current state, future state, and the delta, we've built iOS technology an iOS app that leverages LiDAR so that we can scan a home when we are in the home. That produces a digital twin and allows us to have a good understanding of all of the work that needs to be done to transform the space into the customer's future vision. The long-term goal for us is to move away from specialized technology and a skilled, trained resource doing that work, and to extract roughly the same information, at least where we can get to pricing accuracy from still pictures so that customers who we work with can submit information in a way that is normal, natural, and easy for them. Again, it's about friction reduction. And even if we can't get to the place where we can order based on information extracted from still images, if we can get to the place where we can start a pricing conversation and get to a ballpark range where we're plus or minus 5%, that gives us a lot more flexibility in thinking about how we engage that customer and move them through the process of understanding their project. There are probably 100 other ways that we're using artificial intelligence, but I think I've already talked for too long on this question.
That is awesome. And I think this is an opportune time to say this evening from 6 to 8 o'clock, the Institute is sponsoring the Nittany AI Challenge. Many of these panelists will be there this evening, giving their expertise and helping try to bridge new ideas and how AI can be integrated into all different facets of the built environment. So just a time check, we have 15 minutes for questions, so we still have time, but I want to make sure we have time for questions at the end. Many of you have mentioned an entrepreneurial path, and entrepreneurship is really a powerful force. It also comes with a ton of risk. I heard quitting a job. I think Keith said quit a job with a salary with 2 kids. So there's also a lot of risk around it. But Gary, you mentioned you're the CEO of the Scholar Hotel Group, but you've also founded several real estate tech ventures like Property Logic and iBuilding. So how do you see technology reshaping hospitality in real estate?
It's a good question. I think what I would say is, and I'll do this quick, Scarlett. Real estate's a basic demand business. When we went through the dot-com boom and then bust in the late 90s and early 2000s, I was trying to figure out how we were going to use the internet to make ourselves a better real estate company. It didn't change the fundamental aspects of real estate demand: location, 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 right? You want to go to a hotel near the beach, you're going to stay at the beach. You want an apartment that's walkable to a train, you're going to live in an apartment near a train station. If you want an office building near a train station so your employees can get in and out quickly, you're going to go pick that office building. Industrial, if you want a warehouse near a major highway, you're going to pick that location because you want to be near the highway. So the fundamentals of real estate aren't going to change. I don't care what technology comes through. If we need to move goods from point A to point B, we need to be near highways. If you want to go to the beach on your vacation, you don't want to take an Uber, you want to walk outside your hotel and go to the beach, you're going to stay at the hotel by the beach. And that fundamental aspects of real estate are going to stay with us. The question is, how do we use the internet to change the way we build buildings, design buildings, operate buildings, et cetera? Those are going to change, right? But the fundamental reason we want to either invest in real estate, buy real estate, if you want to buy a home, if you want to invest in an apartment building, the reason you pick to rent a building somewhere, or rent an office or an apartment is going to remain the same. And frankly, as a real estate developer, we're going to use other people's technology. We're probably not going to be an incubator lab and build our own AI tools. We're going to buy other people's tools. So the question is, how can we find the best ones and then create advantages inside our business? So ultimately, if you look at what we do, and I said earlier, we're out raising capital. Can we use AI tools to help us find investors quicker that like to invest in what we build? Yes. 2, can we design and construct buildings quicker and more efficiently using AI? Yes, absolutely. Can I operate my buildings quicker, faster, more efficiently, and give my staff members those tools? Yes, but I still have to clean your room and change the sheets and do laundry, right? Unless I have an AI robot coming in and do that. I'm not sure I'm ready for that. But here's the flip side. In the hospitality business, sometimes we lose the opportunity to provide good hospitality with technology. So who here has ever used like your phone to get in and out of your hotel room? How many of you have bypassed the front desk and gone right to your hotel room, right? Great, it's efficient. But a lot of us in hospitality, especially if we're working in the upper tiers, like 4 or 5-star hotels, when you come to the Nittany Lion Inn, we want you to talk to the person at the desk. We want them to greet you at the desk. Welcome to the Nittany Lion Inn. Hello, Mr. Smith. So glad to have you back. We've given you the room on the corner that you liked last time, right? We lose some of that interaction. So as wonderful as technology is, we're still all human beings. We still want to look someone in the eye. So in hospitality, probably more so than other real estate, other classifications, we have to be a little bit more careful about technology and integration, especially in the upper echelons of our assets. If you're going into a Hampton Inn, probably that room key, bypass the front desk is okay. But when you go to let's say a higher level hotel where you're paying a higher price to stay there, that personal interaction, that extra touch that you can get by interacting with another human is a really important part of the experience we want you to have. So we have to be able to balance it. So ultimately, the great thing about real estate is I think entrepreneurs do it the best. When you look at institutional capital, and I think you'll agree with me, I hope. If you don't, please let's create a good argument. But institutional capital likes to partner with entrepreneurs because we can get things done, right? We know how to work through permitting and zoning, right? And the things that have to be done when you're building a building. Institutional capital is not very good at that. So I think there's always room for entrepreneurs. I think real estate is the best, in my opinion, the best business to be in if you're an entrepreneur.
Thank you so much. Gavin, you talked about you co-founded Skylight Real Estate Partners, but you also led Normandy Real Estate Partners before the acquisition. So what are lessons that you learned from founding and scaling multiple agencies, and what are some nuggets you can share with the audience?
Sure. I'll try to be quick, although that's not my forte. So first of all, I was a partner at Normandy, which was before I co-founded Skylight. But I was a partner in name. I was really an employee. I was co-head of our investment team. I led all of our transactions for over a decade. And it's funny because at the time, and you know, the other entrepreneurs will appreciate this. At the time, you know, I thought, hey, I'm sourcing the deals that we're doing. I'm underwriting them. Me and the team. I'm leading the underwriting. We're raising capital. We're communicating with the investors and the lenders. We're overseeing the execution of the business plan. And I love my founders. What are they really doing? And they're here every day, and it's great. They're giving me guidance and leadership, but really, like, they would be totally in a pickle without me. And then I had the guts to do what they did before me, and I started, Skylight 5 years ago. And now I understand all the things they did, because the investment team needs a platform, right? I was not hiring and firing. I was not doing all kinds of HR for 50 people in the business. I was not setting the strategy. And by the way, when you're a smaller company, whether you like it or not, unless you have these executive roles, you're the head of HR, you're the chief legal officer, you're the chief tech officer. I've gotten deeply immersed in AI tech, prop tech, in the last couple of years, which is amazing, but like definitely not something I had expected. So you really have to kind of work really, really, really hard just so the team can show up at work, and that's an interesting piece of which I find quite rewarding. But that was underappreciated. I don't know if this is working. Something that was underappreciated by me until I went and did it. I'll say that in addition, the second part of that is then think about strategic challenges. Think about number one, as an investor, you're thinking about not just, do I want to buy building A or building B? And like, what's the price difference, or which one has better windows or ceilings? But like, do I want to invest in the office business? Period. Do I want to invest in New York City? Period. And these are the kinds of decisions that an entrepreneur has to make. You have to make, in different industries, you're going to be making key strategic decisions that is going to, kind of change the direction of the company for better or for worse. And I'll leave you with this. You have to be incredibly creative, flexible, hardworking, obviously. Your life is your work. But the one interesting thing I found is at least in finance, and I'm sure entrepreneurs in other industries feel the same, after 20 or 30 years in the business, you have a pretty good idea of how to identify risk, right? You know how to look around the corner and you're like, okay, there's risk there, and I have to think about underwriting that. The real question is, what do you do about it? And that's the judgment that really sets different leaders apart. Sometimes the right decision is to power through it. There's a problem, and I'm going to power through it. I got the best offensive line, and I'm going through it. And sometimes you're like, no, that's ridiculous. I'm going to change course. And that is something that, I try to kind of develop and learn every day, but I think about that a lot. Because it's not just about avoiding risks. It's about calculating the right way forward. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. We got two other quick questions, and we'll open it up to the room. So we have heard over and over again the multitude of different backgrounds you all come from and the importance of really talking to people across disciplines. So, and one of the reasons this institute doesn't sit within a college and sits at the university level is really to trying to build those bridges across disciplines to have a real impact. So Ching Wen, you're the director of the Stuckman School and a global leader around climate justice. And you've worked on things like Climate Justicescape and led co-design efforts with communities around the world. So what are some of the benefits and challenges of creating truly equitable and really resilient urban environments? And how can students from different disciplines collaborate towards that mission?
Well, this is a huge question, as you can already tell. So I'm trying to dissect into some practical tactic. Because when we talk about justice, it's about the system, right? Because there's a difference between equality, equity, and justice, right? Equality, everybody gets the same, but if you can imagine if it is a tree, it's already leaning towards one hand, everybody gets the same ladder, does not catch the same apple, But equity is to look at the different treatments. So we know the tree is leaning towards here. So people who are shortest can get a higher ladder to be able to reach the same level. That's the equity. But the justice is to how we actually ratify the system, how we make the tree, right, to be able to equally accessible to everybody. So if you look at this, how can we build our real estate? How can we provide? I understand there's a private equity, but then if we think about like the public impacts and how can we provide alternative or affordable housings, or how can we whether there's social responsibility from the companies as well to think through working with the public sectors or like cities and to think about alternative ways to make more equitable environment and accessibility to people. And I think real estate essentially is a multidisciplinary industry, right? So we are in this room. You can already tell interior designer, architecture, structural engineering, lighting, material science, and sound. There are already so many disciplines in a space we are building, we create. And you go to the site level, landscape architecture. You can even include the soil science and the geo science, right? To think about how we can, where is the best place to build. And it's so many disciplines come together to truly make it a sustainable development. And that really, again, both social science and natural science together. And I always say design is the integration of art, science, and technology. Because as a designer, we do want to make it beautiful but functional, and it's also science informed. And so that's really working with all the disciplines, and everyone can contribute to build a more sustainable, resilient world together. And so I think I look forward to tonight's session. And in terms of resilience, I think the essence about what is resilience is about the capacity to adapt and to be able to evolve as well. It's not just about returning back to the system. It's not engineering resilience. We have to think about under uncertainty, climate change impacts, and even political, socially uncertainty we are facing. How can we still be resilient to be able to function and evolve and innovate? And that's really the capacity building. And you have to work with community and to get the indigenous knowledge, local knowledge, and then the skill set is how we can open and listen, how we make the connection, how we can work together. That's the capacity building. It's important to build a collaborative and really sustainable work together.
Thank you. Gary, last question for you. You've led major adaptive reuse projects. If you all were at the Nittany Inn pre-Scholar Hotels, it looks very different. I love going over there. Also, awesome food. So if you haven't eaten over there or gone to the coffee shop, highly recommend it. How do you approach to really blending tech design and operations? And what advice do you have for students thinking about transforming legacy spaces that show up on walls within buildings at the university into really these modern, high-performing assets?
Thanks, Scarlett. I think I would start by saying real estate's a three-legged stool, right? So there's three main components: transactional, construction renovation, and then operations. And so when you transform a space or you take on a project, you can do all three. So, real estate takes money, so you have to find capital, whether it's debt capital, equity capital. That's the transactional side. You're buying and selling buildings. There's brokers involved. There's municipalities involved in the transfer of real estate. So there's the whole transactional side of real estate is really where you start. Second is construction, development, renovations, the physical things you do. You might buy a building and not do any renovations, right? If you're buying, depending on what kind of asset you're building. And then the third is operational. So I'm fortunate in our company, we do all three. And so we're able to have our hands in just about everything. So when when we acquired the Nittany Lion Inn from the university, we knew, one, we had to fix the roof, we had to fix the air conditioning, the heating, the hot water systems, et cetera. But we also had to think about, what do we do with it, right? How do we transform the building? Because part of the building was built in 1933, 1955, and 1993. So physically, constructability-wise, it was a mess, right? Typically, if I buy a building and I renovate it, I can use the same construction methods throughout the building. Well, we had to have 3 methods of construction and redevelopment. It was different in the way they built the section, the part in 1933, 55, and 93. So very complicated project. And I had millions of Penn State people looking at me saying, don't screw this up, it's too important, right? So we had to figure out a way to modernize the building, but maintain the history, the integrity, the brand, right? Nittany Lion Inn brand is very important to the university. And so we had to figure out all those 3 things. So what did we do? We brought in a lot of really smart and talented people to help us, right? Because I went to Penn State, I thought I knew everything, right? You know, I can figure this out. I know what's important and what's not important. So we had a great design team. We had a great civil engineer, mechanical engineer, structural engineer. We got all those disciplines together. And frankly, we wanted to make sure we had Penn State people on all those teams, because that secret sauce in what we do here in State College is to have people that understand the community, the importance of the university, the spirit of the university, the soul of the university, and make sure that sort of blends itself into all aspects of what we do. And so it's really important. Construction-wise, you know, what kind of carpet, colors, schemes, artwork. If you notice when you walk into the Nittany Lion Inn, the main lobby sort of has a library academic feel to it, right? We're on a college campus. What do? We read books, we study, we learn. So when you walk into the Nittany Lion Inn, we wanted you to feel like you were in an academic setting. But we also have great bars and restaurants. We have this great 2-story atrium in the middle that, frankly, wasn't used at all in the old design. So we wanted to redevelop that. We took the old fireside room in the back that was rarely used, that had shag carpeting in it from the 1970s. We took all that out. We exposed the floors from the 1930s, and we put a new cocktail lounge in there. What did that do? It reinvigorated the back end of the building, the back side of the building. But what else did it do? It created a revenue stream for us. Before that room never had any revenue coming from it. So now we have another revenue stream. So it's also about creating a profitable business, right? I say in our business, our first job is to make a profit and provide a good return to my investors. If I can't do that, then I'm out of business, right? The second thing I can do if I'm profitable is I can hire and retain great people. I can pay them well and have great benefits and do really good things like that. And then the third thing I can do is be a great community partner, right? We can donate money, we can be sponsorships, we can donate rooms and really be an important part of the community. So that's sort of my track there. But ultimately, innovation, like I said in my last response, is going to help me find capital quicker. It's going to help me design and build quicker, and it's going to make me a more efficient operator. But the fundamentals of what I do in the real estate space aren't going to change. It didn't change back during .com. It made us better, and I think the new AI renovation. I don't know, who anyone here a Philadelphia 76ers basketball fan? When I first started hearing the word AI, I thought they were talking about Allen Iverson. And then I finally realized that it's not Allen Iverson, it's artificial intelligence. So I think artificial intelligence is going to do the same thing. It's going to make us better investors, better developers, and better operators.
Great ending. Thank you so much. So we have about 15 minutes for questions. So I know there's one right up front. I will walk around and hand you the mic so everyone can hear. And if you have a specific panelist, feel free to direct it. Otherwise, you all get to decide who's answering.
Thank you so much. It was an amazing time listening to all of the amazing guys. I have a question for you two, and maybe Keith can join in on this one. As you said, the growing extent of private equity, with that, it has become omnipresent. There has been also a very rising issue of the holo debt that it is creating, and that has led to inflationary prices in the real estate back in my country, that's India, and here as well. We certainly can agree to the fact that the housing and real estate in general has become unaffordable for a very huge class of people. And there is a very huge bubble that is growing, which if bursts, wouldn't be the nicest thing that we would want. There was a similar crisis that was in 2008, as we all know, and we had AI back then, and if some of you might know, BlackRock's Aladdin was used in order to mitigate the losses and in order to know and strategize the investments that are further made. As Gary said, he is not in the business of incubating new AIs, he is in the business of using them. So with the huge data sets that you have, with the huge experience that you have, can we make an AI that can be used by people like Gary to make strategic investments, to check the feasibility of projects, and something that can be used to mitigate the inflation, something that can be used in order to not let the holo debts take up the whole real estate market? I'll just join the another part of my question that's specifically for Keith. You mentioned that you have huge data sets for the energy part of your business, where you take on the energy needs, the energy usages, and you work around that. With such huge data sets, there can be something that maybe, I would say, algorithmized, or if there is a word like that, or if there is any ulterior use to that. I would want to know that. Thank you so much.
Keith, you want to start? We'll go in reverse.
You want to go reverse order?
Yep.
So maybe repeat your question and make sure I understand it. So Novell, we have software and hardware. We have a product we install inside our customers, and we connect directly into the electricity panel. And so we're measuring real-time power consumption all the way down to the floor receptacle level, and the utility company charges you in kind of 15-minute incremental. What's the maximum amount of power I use every 15 minutes? And if I use a certain amount of power, I get charged for that amount of power, the most I use for the next month. And so you really want to reduce that peak. And so we're capturing all this data, and then we're running, what would be like classic learning models, looking at the data, and then we're doing predictive analytics on what do we think is going to happen. It's 1:48 on a Thursday. What's going to happen today? And what's going to happen on Saturday when Penn State absolutely dominates Oregon, and how much power is going to be consumed? And we're doing these predictive analytics. And so if we can predict where it's going to go, then we can actually make smart decisions on how to manage it. So we see huge value in applying AI, agentic models, language learning models, and the processing power and capabilities that we can use to make those choices can drive real economic ROI to our customers. Did that come close enough to answering your question, or?
Yes. Just.
Of course it did, but as you said, going from the macros to the micros, the level at which you are operating is the industrial level, where you cater to the huge energy needs and not to the specific ones that are really required. I think so. The cost of electricity is also one of the very big problems that the United States of America faces. So can you think it is possible that with the learning models that you have developed, we can implement them into the households in order to mitigate or make the electricity a little more affordable for the American households? Is that possible? And yeah, if you have an internship for me, I would love to have one.
I'll take a half a swing at it, but anybody on the panel, look, I grew up on Wall Street. I think capital can be really used for good. I only operate at companies where we're going to have a huge impact that's a positive impact, but can be driven by profit and capital. So what I mean by that is, the first washer dryer that was ever invented was very expensive, but it gave someone back 10 hours who was washing their laundry in a stream. Now you're putting it in a machine, or, so. And then what happens is more capital comes into the washer dryers, to the AI, to all these things. You get better and better performance, and it drives the cost down. And so something that was unaffordable can now go to people that, to your example, don't have as much capital. The challenge with AI is we need a lot of power to run it, but then it's going to be far more efficient in terms of the capabilities to kind of optimize. So you have this it's going to get higher, and then it's going to start to come in. So I think it's really capital and that layer that's going to drive the cost down by competition and forces, but then operational efficiency will also help. Does anyone else disagree or have another point of view on the panel?
No, I mean, I was just going to add your washer dryer analogy was great. So people see their electric bills going up clearly, right? And they don't understand why. But they love their chat GPT and they're using it all the time, right? So they're like, that's kind of a cost. It's weird because you're not plugging into the chat GPT, but let's just say metaphorically it's happening somewhere else. But like the washer dryer, you're benefiting. Like your electric bill might go up, but like look how much AI is improving your life. Eventually we'll add the self-driving cars and lots of other things and you'll be like, oh my God, it's amazing. And so the way we get charged for it is going to be different. Back to like real estate, I will make a distinction. My business, I don't do single family homes, so I could kick that over to West Shore. I don't do homes where people typically buy and live in their home. When I say residential, I mean apartment buildings, and that huge. I mean, there was a big problem. There's a lot of debt coming due, or the debt that's not due is much more expensive given where rates are. But the tenant or the resident is not going to be impacted really. Rents have gone up a lot, right? But they're only going to go up as much as the market can bear. The landlord is going to be the one that's going to have a problem. So I don't really think it's as much of a societal problem. At the single family home market, very different story. If you can't pay your mortgage and you're getting evicted, that's a different thing. But in my business, it's really the landlords that are going to be faced with a problem. And they're going to have to, as I mentioned earlier, private equity is coming in, and there's opportunities that are using private equity, as I was describing, to dull the pain. You don't have to sell the building, even if you can't just refinance it. There's like a middle compromise solution. So I think that, and then the number one thing that would help, though, because there is a housing crisis, is affordable housing. I work in New York City and we hear about affordable housing every day. For 20 years, we've been hearing about all the new affordable housing that's coming, and it's been very underwhelming.
Isn't the new mayor of New York going to give everybody a free house?
So we have a whole side session about Mamdani, but he is pro affordable housing. The problem is, you can say I'm pro affordable housing, but how do you build it? If you go to the Nittany Challenge thing at 6:00 tonight, we're going to talk about some, what are some ideas of how we can use AI to make the world better? And I have, in my mind, I think there's a real way that AI could help create more affordable housing, which will just more housing will make the market more affordable, right? Because if you don't have enough supply, if you don't have enough supply and there's a lot of demand, the price becomes unbearable.
And there's a lot of other factors that make housing unaffordable, right? Permitting and environmental regulations, union construction versus non-union construction. So I was going to ask, there's two things. One, there's a lot of factors that go into utility costs, right? And that's why you see Microsoft paying $10 billion to start up part of the 3 Mile Island nuclear in outside of Harrisburg. Two, inflation, very complicated question. A lot of things impact inflation. We couldn't answer that in 5 hours at this panel.
Yeah, I'll throw in two quick pieces here. One, there's an interesting dynamic on the AI front and model building, where the cost of intelligence is largely trending to zero, and every advancement in a large language model has actually resulted in cost savings to the consumer, in part because it's being subsidized by investors at OpenAI, Anthropic, et cetera. But also there's a trend for small language model performance to be really strong, which inherently implies more limited power consumption for execution. So I think as we get more developed in this capability, we're going to see that the energy demands will reduce. The second component as it relates to housing affordability in the consumer market, the single biggest factor that's driving housing and affordability right now is the shift in the interest rate dynamic. And mostly what that's doing, and this is a drastic difference between now and the last housing bubble, is that you have people who own homes and are locked into low interest rate mortgages and are disincentivized to move because they don't want to trade a 2.7 for a 6.5% interest rate. So it's a real big problem for your generation, like folks who are coming out who don't already own a home and aren't locked into a mortgage. Very painful. For the folks who have a home, their payment is low, and they're sitting comfortably, but their housing mobility is decreased.
Okay, we have time one last question, and then hopefully our panelists will stick around a little bit if you have additional questions.
Okay, so as a student like myself who's just been introduced to these ideas, how should I move forward? And as I'm studying architectural engineering, some of my peers who are studying IST and real estate, how can we utilize this new information to further our careers?
So I'll take that really quick. When the dot-com boom started, I was 33 years old. And the reason I got involved was I was the youngest partner in the company. So they said, you're the youngest guy, you must know the most about technology. And so what I was able to do in that role was learn as much as I could about the internet, what it was going to mean to business, how it was going to impact real estate. My son graduated from college in May. He's in the real estate business in New York City. I said, learn as much as you can about AI, because the older guys like me, if you worked in my company, I'd be pointing to you saying, you're the one that's going to learn about AI. You're the one who's going to transform our company, not me. And so what I would recommend is learn as much as you can. Not about how to program a computer in AI, but how it's going to impact your career path as an engineer or an architect. Because when you interview, that's what you should be talking about. That's what, most likely the person interviewing you is going to be older than you. So you can impress the you-know-what out of them by understanding technology and the intricacies of it. Not so much how to program it, but how it's going to impact. So if I were any of the young people in the room, students, learn as much as you can, become knowledgeable. The old folks, like me, in the company you're going to work for, are going to look to you to change the company.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, you're so much more technology native, what you grew up with. I mean, quite frankly, some of us, we didn't have cell phones in college, so you're way more advanced than folks, when you get to be our stage and age. One of the most valuable things we have is the compounding of relationships for the last 30 years. So people we worked with when we were 22 and 30, and Gavin and I haven't spent any time together, but I know Gavin's partners from Normandy, and I have a great reputation, and they have a great reputation, and so that becomes this long-term value that you bring to get in, to be an apprentice, to start, just to learn, bring something special like that technology savvy. I think that's a fantastic point, and highly recommend it.
Yeah, I agree with Keith and Gary. You continue to learn as much you can, and also understand how the systems are connected. So more of a system thinking and design thinking. Because we are all problem solvers, you will have to understand the complexity of the issues as much you can. And then I think using technology to help to analyze those complexity. Hopefully we use AI as a tool. We can design AI, but be careful not to be designed by AI. Right, so we should be still the decision maker, but how can you be a good decision maker? You have to learn, you have to understand, have critical thinking. So don't overly rely on just what AI tell you, right? So at your young stage, still try to learn, and this actually coming to this panel within the disciplinary discipline, you are already doing a good step. So just keep doing.
Last word. Sorry, Gavin.
In 1999, 2000. I'm sorry. There were hundreds of real estate.coms that formed. You name it. Trying to do all three legs of that stool I talked about. 99% of them failed. The reason most of them failed was because they were all tech people in the startups. None of them, almost none of them, or almost all of them, didn't have a real estate person on their board involved in designing and developing their products. They didn't understand the fundamentals of real estate. That was their biggest mistake. So if you're interested in real estate and technology, make sure you understand the fundamentals of real estate, but make sure you understand how the tech's going to impact it. There were a few that were successful, and guess what? They were started by real estate entrepreneurs, not tech entrepreneurs. So if you really love real estate, you could be a tech real estate person. You can do it.
If I, as an educator, my last word to students is, I also hope you hold on your values of what you believe. It's making a positive impact to the world of what you do. Using the technology tool knowledge you can have, but keep your passion, keep your values.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here. I just have a couple of words before we thank our panelists. I hope this sparked some ideas of not only career paths, but some challenges that we can solve within the Institute. We have all of our events are up on our website, also on our LinkedIn page, so follow us to learn more. And this is the first time we will be sending out this email tomorrow. But if today's conversation sparked anything in you, I encourage you all to attend a day trip with us to the Ellis Preserve. This event was actually made possible by another Penn State alumni, Art Pescarella, who's the vice chair of Equus Capital, who helped us reach out to find ways to engage with students. The Ellis Preserve is a 218-acre mixed-use development that transformed a historic school site into a vibrant community of offices, retail, housings, and green space. And it's a living example of many of the things that we heard today. So we'll be hearing from their architects, engineers, finance, designers, and how they all came together to really design this space. Spots are limited, so apply today. Please join me in thanking our speakers for joining us today.